Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MFSN The Hubs, The Waiver Wire, Week 1. Here we are with Fantasy Pros expert Andrew Seifter, and as always, Ross the Boss.
Hi, I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk waiver wire with you, cowboy.
I love the tonality you have. What's going on during the pause? I just want to know.
The pause is just people anticipate the cowboy, so I kind of give them a second
right.
to digest the cowboy coming out, as Ross the Boss does every time. He gives a little pause. Pause is always good in life, I think. Don't you agree?
I do, and I particularly enjoy the pause, so I had to ask.
I think he just imagines that he's talking to Dak Prescott when he says it.
All right, guys, speaking of Dak Prescott, we are going to start with the QBs. That's where most people start. And I want to know, who are your number one ads for QB? Now, let's keep in mind, we've got 10-team leagues, we've got 12-team leagues. We even have 14-team leagues, so we're going to have to think about that. Our rule of thumb is that if a player is owned in 50% of Yahoo leagues or more, we don't really mention them because they're probably not going to be available. So I want to know, who's your number one pick? Mine is, you know what? I'm going to hold off. I'm going to go to you guys first. And tell me, we're going to do top 5, but let's go with the first one first. Top 1.
Okay, well, I was actually surprised this guy's owned in less than 50% of Yahoo leagues, but Ryan Tannehill, he was the number 2 quarterback, interestingly, over the last 10 games of last season in fantasy leagues, behind only one Lamar Jackson. So that's pretty impressive company to be in for a guy that's unowned in more than half of leagues. And he also gets a great matchup this week against the Jaguars, who are not known for their terrific defense. So even though I do think Tannehill may regress a little bit this year from the numbers he put up last season, he still is an excellent play this week, I think.
Did you say that he was number 2?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Tannehill.
Oh my God, the things you learn.
Tannehill has nobody to throw to. Tannehill? What are you talking about? Tannehill.
All right, Ross.
All I care about is numbers, Ross. You may like the haircut or something. But
Tannehill, my pick is, look, I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio right now as I talk to you. I'm on the road. So my guy is Houday, Joe Burrow.
Pick up Boomer.
Joe Burrow, baby. I love Joe Burrow. I watched him play the whole game yesterday. He looked great. A lot of draw passes. He ran his first ball he ran in. It was a touchdown. It was unbelievable. A.J. Green should have called that touchdown, but they called pass interference. It was a horrible call. The Bengals should have won that game. The kicker blew that too. I was so upset. But that all being said, Joe Burrow, for first game, remember, no preseason. Joe Burrow just went out there, Ohio kid, born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio, and he was more in Athens, Ohio, but close enough. But what I'm saying is this, Joe Burrow is my first pick. I love him. He's the real deal. This kid's a stud. Wherever he goes, he throws up numbers. Joe Burrow's mine.
All right, but Andrew, I want to ask, is Joe Burrow owned in 50% of Yahoo League?
I believe he is owned in more than 50% of Yahoo leagues. There are a lot of people that are very excited about him. And I will get to this when we talk about defenses. But the other thing to keep in mind with Joe Burrow is he plays on Thursday night against the Browns. And, the Browns are obviously not an incredible defense, but those short weeks, there tend to be a lot less offense in those games. And Burrow's also going to be on the road for that game. So I'm not sure this will be his biggest week.
All right, I just want to go on record. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to hammer the Browns. They have been dishing it out to me for years. So I'm gonna say that Joe Burrow is going to go for at least 4 touchdowns against the Browns.
Love it. He is. Joe Burrow's the real deal, and I can't believe he's in more than 50% of the leagues. I did not. That's news to me. I got to look that up after I'm done with this conversation.
All right, so my number 1 is a bit crazy. I'm gonna just say that it's Keanu Reeves from the movie The Replacements. He is.
No, he's not a real player. That's not. That's not real.
I have a feeling I know who you're going with.
Keanu Reeves, Tannehill, Ryan Tannehill. Now, Connor, what are you guys doing? No.
Okay, I'll give you a real.
Winning my fantasy leagues, Ross.
Here is actually my number 1 guy. Tua.
Who?
Tua is my Tua. How do you even say his name? Tagovailoa.
Tua is good. I like that. I actually love that pick.
This is the one you want to pounce on right now. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he looked terrible. We all know he's going to have his great games. He's got his Fitzmagic games.
Great beard, horrible player.
Yeah.
Great beard, horrible player.
The reason I say Tua is this guy runs also. A quarterback that runs also is fantasy gold. You want to pick him up while you have a chance now, and this is your last chance. He's going to be the starter in like 2 games.
That's interesting.
He's starting next week. This kid's unbelievable. You're 100% right. Tua's a great pick. I don't know if even my first quarterback to pick up, but you can't go wrong picking up. I pick 1,000%.
Yeah, if you're picking up a quarterback that you don't need to start, I think that's a good pickup. I think a lot of people stream quarterbacks, though. So they're really looking at somebody that's got a good matchup this coming week and is going to be useful. And I actually I agree with you that running quarterbacks are important, which is why I mentioned Tannehill, because he actually does quite a bit of running himself. If you look at the stats, you might not think he's a running quarterback, but he is. And another guy, the other side of that game this coming week, Gardner Minshew, is my second choice at quarterback, because he's another guy that actually runs the ball. And he, with that bad defense, they're playing in a lot of wide open kind of shootout style games, and that's going to probably keep happening this season as well.
And he was 19 for 20. Who does that? Okay, he's actually in my top. I'm going to list my top 5. Tua, I've got Phillip Rivers. Like, okay, I know he's old, but the guy threw for 360 yards. Old man Rivers.
He made a bunch of bad passes, interceptions at bad times. I don't like Phillip Rivers. I know they throw a lot. They have no running game. The running game was awful, the Colts. They should be embarrassed about their running game. They must have no offensive line, but he missed a lot of passes, Phillip Rivers. I'm not a huge fan, but keep going.
He made my top 5, by the way, but he was towards the back of it because I like their receivers that they've got there.
How about Kirk Cousins?
Cousins made my list as well. I think he and Rivers are both sort of like low upside but kind of reliable plays. They're not going to totally kill you. They're not going to get benched in the second half like Ryan Fitzpatrick might, or have a total clunker of a game. But I do think that Cousins misses out on having Diggs a little bit. That offense is a little one-dimensional through Adam Thielen, and I will have to see how long they can keep that going.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that Tua and Gardner Minshew are higher up on the list. I'm curious what you guys think about Mitchell Trubisky.
I hate Mitchell Trubisky. I never would want to play him.
I'm sorry, I am. I mean, look.
He had good stats last week, but I never would trust him in my lineup. With the 2 quarterback league, you might have to do it, but I'd never feel great about it.
The real problem.
He's not going to be starting in week 3.
See, that's the problem. He's
not starting. He's horrible.
Well, he got the win. DeAndre Swift dropped that pass, so that might give Mitchell Trubisky a little more life.
He played the worst team in the league. My high school team could beat the Detroit Lions. They're awful. They're horrible.
Okay,
horrible team.
Last chance.
Not good.
Last chance. Who's got a one quarterback we have not mentioned who people should think about picking up?
Are you ready?
Yep.
This is mine. If you need to pick them up, I like them a lot. I think they'll score a lot of points. Probably the worst defense in the NFL, one of the worst. But I like Teddy Bridgewater. I love this kid.
I thought that's who you were talking about.
He had a good game. He's a smart quarterback. He throws the ball right on the money. He can run. But if I had to pick a quarterback, like right now, who was like in the bottom half of the quarterbacks, he'll be either 1 or 2. He's unbelievable.
Running backs.
Let's go.
Who's your top pick? I'm gonna hold back on mine because I led the charge on the last one. Go ahead. I'll come in last. Who are your top? Let's say top.
I'll
go
first.
Yeah, go ahead.
My top 2 is my top 1 is Malcolm Brown of the Rams. I love this kid. He got the ball a bunch of times. I think he had 2 touchdowns. He looked great. The Rams need a good running back for that offense. It won't work unless they have a running game, and the running game looked pretty good against the Cowboys, so it's a great defense. My other one, I didn't know this guy was going to play this much, but he led the team in handoffs and everything. Is this Benny Snell Jr.? I mean, this guy for the Pittsburgh Steelers, he was unbelievable. And it was what he did. I mean, Connor, the real running back, who I thought was going to go to the handoffs, who everybody drafted, had like 20 yards. I mean, it was
well, Connor got hurt. That's the reason. That's the reason that Snell, is the number 1 pick this week.
I'm just saying, Snell looked great. I mean, they're
but guess who drafted Snell, and then Andrew came calling because he was the Connor owner, and I sold him, and look what happened.
The Connor man, the Connor man.
And my last one is he's this time doesn't matter with this guy. Is Adrian Peterson. He's unbelievable. This guy goes to a different team. He has over 100 yards with passing and with receiving and running. I mean, this guy this guy's unbelievable. He's like time to stand still with this guy, and I would pick him up
I
too
agree.
if we needed a running back.
Both Andrew and I mentioned him at various points before, and so Silver and Blue Jesus is ready to go. He's all cute up. He keeps changing colors, but he's still Jesus.
I have to admit, I was a little surprised that he that they picked him up, and then 1 week later they just kicked Kerryon Johnson completely to the curb. It's clear that Peterson is ahead of him in the pecking order. He's ahead of the rookie Swift right now. I think Swift will get more involved as the year goes along, but yeah, right now, Peterson, he was my number 3. Malcolm Brown was my number 2. I think that that Rams offense has proven that the whoever's getting the carries in that offense is going to be valuable in fantasy. Todd Gurley wasn't that great the last year or two, but he still put up huge fantasy numbers because of all the touchdowns that he piled up. So I think Brown can do that for now. Akers eventually, I think, is going to get that job. And then also Snell is the clear number 1, I think, just because of how productive that Pittsburgh running situation always is, and because Connor actually has an injury. But one other guy I actually have near the top as well I wanted to mention who we haven't talked about yet is Nyheim Hines for the Colts. I don't usually love the pass catching back in standard leagues and even in half PPR really, but I think it's an exception when you're in a Phillip Rivers offense because he just throws so many dump-off passes to the running backs. That's why Austin Eckler was so valuable last year. And I think that Hines, especially with Marlon Mack out for the year, I think Jonathan Taylor is going to be incredible. But I think Nyheim Hines is also going to be really valuable.
Yeah, but the Colts have no offensive line. That offensive line is old.
That's why you throw that quick pass to the running back.
That's what they do.
You can't throw the deep pass downfield.
The running backs are going to have a major
like.
problem this year. Indianapolis is not the place you want to get a running back.
There's a guy you guys haven't mentioned, though. There's a guy you haven't mentioned that I like maybe better than all of these guys for the rest of the season is Joshua Kelly.
I like Joshua Kelly, too. He was my number 4.
UCLA kid. I like him, too. But the problem with him is he's more of like a backup guy. He comes in and out. Doesn't get the ball consistently, but –
now you're wrong, Ross. He's the Melvin Gordon role in that offense this year.
We'll see.
Because Eckler is not a bell cow. Eckler is a pass catching back, and they need somebody that can grind it in between the tackles and that can take it down at the goal line. And that's what Joshua Kelly's going to be. I wasn't sure if it would be him or Justin Jackson, but I knew whoever had that role was going to be valuable, and it really looks like it's Kelly.
Meanwhile, the rookies pick up the pace as the year goes. Joshua Kelly was my number 1 on the list until Snell.
Wow. Okay.
Snell, just because of Pittsburgh, leaps to number 1.
Yeah, Pittsburgh loves the run game.
We're going to move on to wide receiver. Who you got at the top?
Well, mine might be surprising because he didn't actually do much. He actually only caught 1 pass, in fact. But it's Jalen Reagor, who somehow is not 50% owned in Yahoo leagues, which surprised me. I mean, that's a great passing offense with Carson Wentz. There's so much potential there. And it's really a wide open depth chart. I mean, Deshaun Jackson's a good receiver, but he's not a number 1 guy. So they really need somebody to step up.
Go back. Carson Wentz, a great offensive quarterback. What were you saying? Great and Wentz in the same sentence?
He puts up fantasy numbers. He throws
but I mean, his decision making, he lost that game for the Eagles.
Who cares? I just want the stats, man. I don't care if you won or lost the game. In fact, a lot of guys that lose the game do better.
Horrible.
I am.
It's a fantasy show, Ross. Fantasy show.
Wait, no, listen. Well, it is fantasy show, but here's the other thing. There's 3 guys ahead of him because they throw to both tight ends. Because Dallas Goedert is my number 1 tight end pickup, and he was all along.
100 yards. 100. He was great. He was terrific.
But it's not just the yardage. I drafted him in my dynasty league this year because I was like, there's room for Ertz and Goddard. They're both. So I think, and then you've got Deshaun Jackson. So I don't see Jalen Reagor carving out that much of a role. And you've got Alshon Jeffrey coming back soon too, don't you?
Yeah, he's coming back.
I wouldn't count on Alshon coming back. I mean, and if he does, he won't be anything what he was. I mean, I think that Goddard's good. I mean, if he was on a different team, I'd play him every week. But I think on that team, he's a borderline tight end 1.
Let me ask you this though: why would you take Reagor over Russell Gage of the Falcons?
Because Russell Gage is clearly 3rd on the depth chart. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Julio Jones is obviously number 1. Calvin Ridley is obviously number 2. It's not clear to me that Gage is going to get more targets than Hayden Hurst, the tight end, either. So really, he could be 4th on that depth chart.
Yeah,
And I
but
think that
Reagor is third at best.
I mean, I don't get me wrong. I like Gage as a pickup simply because in games where the Falcons fall behind by a lot, they'll have enough room for everybody to get theirs. But he's not going to be consistent. He's really more of a handcuff in case Julio Jones or Ridley get injured, in my opinion.
And all Atlanta does is throw the ball. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, Gage is definitely in my top 5 pickup. I mean, he's barely picked up in any leagues this week.
Who's your number one, Ross?
I would go again. I'm going with Carolina. Robby Anderson. I don't know how many. I'm not quite sure what his percentage is in how many leagues, but
it's low enough.
I mean, it's pretty low.
It won't be after this week.
But Robby Anderson, Carolina has a good offense. They have McCaffrey, who I think is the number 1 back in the league. Correct? Hello.
No? Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So McCaffrey's one.
Some people will say Kamara.
So when you're playing football, when you have a great running back like McCaffrey, you have to put 8 people in the box, or at least 7 or 8. So it opens up these receivers. So they can't.
Hey, listen.
They can't
if you're the Browns, you put 12 in the box.
Here's the problem with Robbie Anderson, though. I mean, you got Bridgewater and Anderson. You're really buying into that passing game. The problem is that all 3 of their receivers, DJ Moore, Anderson, and Curtis Samuel, are all playing about the same number of snaps. And Anderson caught a 75-yard touchdown. You can't count on that every week with him. I think he's going to be really boom and bust, inconsistent. That's kind of what he's been his whole career.
How about the Packers receivers, guys? What do we make of Lazard and Scantling? What is it? Vasquez-Scantling.
Valdez-Scantling.
Valdez-Scantling.
I think that I like stashing those. I like Valdez-Scantling a little bit more because I think his role in the offense has more upside. Lazard is more kind of a possession receiver in that offense, and MVS is the big play threat. I think they're both worth stashing. They didn't quite make my top 5 because I just think there's so many great receivers out there right now. But one of those guys could definitely turn into a wide receiver 3 or maybe even a wide receiver 2.
And hold on, and you're talking about Green Bay. I mean, who would think Aaron Rodgers would have such a great game last week against Minnesota? I mean, that's unbelievable. I mean, this guy, everybody counts him out. He was drafted mostly in the 7th or 8th round in most leagues, and then he comes back and he has I think he was one of the highest point guys in fantasy.
It's the best game he's had in over a year.
I mean, it was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
It was. The guy has no resume. He comes out of nowhere. I'm kidding. All right. Now I'm going to throw out a couple other names just for people to think about. Paris Campbell, Scotty Miller.
Love Scotty Miller.
Yeah, Scotty Miller.
I've had Scotty Miller in my dynasty league for 2 years. So I've been waiting for this moment. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I want to throw out a few more too. Another guy I'm surprised is not more owned is Mike Williams. I think a lot of people just bailed on him because he was hurt in the preseason, but he didn't look hurt at all in that game. And even though I'm a little down on the Chargers passing game this season with Tyrod Taylor, he's not afraid to throw the deep ball. And Mike Williams is one of the best receivers out there at going up and getting it. So I think he's locked in as the number 2 receiver in that offense. And that's definitely going to have some value. He had 1,000 yards last year, 10 touchdowns the year before. So that's some real value. And then, people might have forgot about this because it was a Thursday night game, but Sammy Watkins, my God, huge game.
Watkins, great.
Getting a piece of that Kansas City offense. Yeah, I mean, Watkins could flame out at any time, but right now he's ahead of McCole Hardman. He's ahead of DeMarcus Robinson, so that makes him a viable.
I had him number 1 on my list because he's the kind of guy who can actually mysteriously and strangely win you a league because he's in the Kansas City offense. He could easily flame out, but if you're looking for fantasy gold, Sammy Watkins is the way to go.
Sammy Watkins is great. I mean, I drafted him like 12th or 11th in round this season, and I had him in leagues many times. And 2 years ago, he was the highest paid receiver in the NFL. You guys know that?
I had no idea.
I just want to throw one other guy in there before we move on. Much as I was saying, Reagor has that depth chart he can take advantage of. I think so does Preston Williams in Miami because Devontae Parker has a hamstring injury and he wasn't really locked in as that number 1 option anyway. So Preston Williams was surprisingly effective. He was an undrafted free agent, but he was really good last year before he tore his ACL, and he looks totally healthy now.
Okay. Here's an alert. Don't get anybody from Miami, nobody from the New York Jets,
except Tua.
No one from Chicago Bears unless their defense is unless you pick up their defense this week, which you should.
No Allen Robinson.
No.
I mean, he's good, but I'd rather have somebody on a.
I'd rather have Robby Anderson.
Guys,
Whoa.
moving on to tight end.
Hot take.
I think we would all agree that Dallas Goedert is the top pick for tight end. But if 1981 Ozzie Newsome is available, I'm going for him.
Is Goddard less than 50% owned?
Has to be. There's no way he's.
I don't think he is.
Has to be 5%.
I don't think he is.
What?
But I have a couple guys that are definitely less than 50% owned that I think are definitely useful. One is Eric Ebron with Pittsburgh. He didn't actually have a great Monday night performance, but he's going to be a red zone factor for them. That passing game is back. Roethlisberger looked good, and they really want to use Ebron in creative ways. They said they want to flex him out wide, that he's going to have a ton of design plays in the red zone to get touchdowns. And last time he played with a good quarterback was Andrew Luck. He had 13 touchdown catches. So
no, he was. I had him that
there.
season. He was unbelievable for the Colts that season,
Yeah.
and I like him too.
Yeah, and then another guy is super boring, but Jack Doyle. I mean, all he does is catch passes. Like, he's not ever going to win you a week, but he's going to catch 5 or 6 passes every single week. And there's a lot of sexy names at tight end that you put them in your lineup and they go one catch for 5 yards, and Jack Doyle's never going to do that. So there's value.
All right, I got to ask one question before we're out of time, and we are kicking kicker to the curb and even defense because we ran out of time. But what do you guys think of OJ Howard? He's a tease all the time, but now he's got Tom Brady, and that's making me wonder: is there something different there?
Well, it seems like you have a infatuation with teams that play 2 tight ends, because you were mentioning the Eagles before. Now, Gronkowski is clearly going to get some looks. It was very interesting, though, how they used OJ Howard in that game. And if they do continue to use him that much, I could definitely see him approaching that low end tight end 1 kind of value. As long as Gronk is there, and then, if Evans is healthy, with Evans and Godwin soaking up so many targets, I wonder about how much upside Howard has. But, that's an offense you want a piece of.
No, I have him 5th on my list. Greg Olsen, I also have higher.
Me too.
Love Hawks offense. But another guy.
Oh,
Logan
and just
Thomas.
about Olsen, yeah, the Seattle, whoever they've had a different tight end starting, a bunch lately, but every time whoever it's been has been putting up like top 10 kind of numbers. And Russell Wilson was throwing more than ever in week 1, so that could be a great offense.
No, he looked great. But really quick before we go, this is the time when I always kind of like look at the players that were picked high that didn't achieve it all week 1. And, And what happens is these owners get kind of frantic, like, oh my God, picked,
and remember, I could trade for him too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like Michael Thomas, he didn't do that well in New Orleans. So
he got hurt too, unfortunately.
And he's not going to be out that long. But this is a good time to go after these players that had really bad first weeks.
Yes,
like Barkley for the Giants. He had
this is the patented Ross panic move.
Yeah, people panic. So don't be afraid to call these owners that got these guys really high, and maybe you had a guy that overachieved. That's a pretty good name. But put him in a little package deal. So see if he can get some of the top tier guys cheap.
Yeah, that's good. That's good advice. And the flip side of that is don't just purely chase last week's stats.
Don't
look at the snap counts. Try to figure out if a guy's actually playing a key role in an offense, then that's something. But if he just made one big play, don't buy that.
Don't buy. Don't buy. Just remember, it's week 1. It's basically a preseason game. This week was like a preseason for me because I had no idea he was going to play.
More than any other time.
We really had no idea what was going to happen. I had no idea Ben Roethlisberger was going to be so good. I had no idea that any of these players who were hurt that came back were going to have big weeks. It was like a learning experience, and we got to treat it like that. So don't trade into your big names, but try to get those big names on your team if you can.
All right. Now, listen, we're going to track actually how we're doing. This is something that I find does not happen in waiver wire segments. I want us to keep track of how we actually did. Next week, we'll have bragging rights, or maybe we'll be ashamed of who we pick. And I want to talk about that. But this has been your waiver wire week 1 show, and we'll be back next week for week 2, of course. Everybody, come to YouTube for MFSN, the Hub, waiver wire, and just the Hub, which is our main show. And please click subscribe. It only takes 1 finger unless you have serious problems.
And also tell your friends, we're going to have some really cool merchandise we're going to give away in a little bit. We have some great stuff happening. We've got some great guests coming up. Just subscribe.
That's right. Tell your friends. And even tell my friends if you know them.
You
Tell
don't have any,
everyone
you have
know.
friends? Oh,
I got some friends.
I didn't know. But again, we're excited for this year. It's going to be a great year.
Week 1 in the books, baby.
Yeah, week 1 in the books. Week 2 coming up.
Let's do it.
I'm Ross the Boss, and I love talking waiver wire with you, cowboy.
Who was under the blanket with me? I said, you don't want to find. It is Hideki Matsui.